Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. My name is Sarah, and today my co-host Carrie Bennett and I are going to be making these complex topics of quantum biology and circadian biology understandable to the everyday person. Thank you so much for tuning in. We ask that if you are listening on audio only, that you take a moment to leave us up to a 5-star review. And if you're on YouTube, leave us a like, leave us a comment. It will help to get the show out to more people. And before we jump into today's topic, just a quick reminder to head down to the show notes and check out my free resources as well as Carrie's free resources. We also do have courses on a variety of topics. If you are hoping to dive deeper, Carrie and I both have practitioner courses available as well for anyone who wants to begin to bring these topics to their clients and help them to implement these strategies into their daily lives. So check those out. We also have a co-taught course called Quantum Fertility that is available that allows people and practitioners to work on their fertility using these principles of quantum biology and circadian biology. Again, thank you so much for listening or watching today's show, whichever one you are doing. And let's go ahead and jump into it now. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Quantum Conversations. It is March the 4th that we're sitting here recording, and days are getting longer. Daylight saving time is on Sunday.
Oh boy.
UV light is stronger, getting stronger, heading up to summer. So we thought we would just do an episode about vitamin D because we get a lot of questions about that. Spring, my app and how to use that to maximize your sun exposure.
Yep.
And health. So yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
So it's a perfect time of year to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And it's why I've been referring a lot of people to your app and more because I got a spring reset challenge coming up that goes over this, right? Because this is a time when this is truly, in my opinion, the start of the year, right? Mm-hmm. We're finally getting out of kind of like that feeling of hibernating and hunkering down. And like, I know you and I, it's like, we've been getting this antsy, like almost like a nesting urge, like purge. And I think that's happening. Just like a new energy. It just feels like a new energy that's, that's coming and understandably so, because we got like basically life is returning. Mm-hmm. And so this is a good time, whether you've engaged in circadian practices or whether you're new to it, to really start to hone in on some key strategies, because this is the time when you might want to be outside more due to temperature. You can get stronger sunlight on the skin in order to get some major benefits of that. And so this is just a really beneficial time in order to understand light in its many capacities. And I think people do get myopic with light, right? We think light on the skin, the only benefit is vitamin D. Mm-hmm. And we can even break that down a little bit because that's not the case at all. But even then, and I know we've talked about vitamin D before, and your app I think is a really great way to log a sun session and understand approximately what your body might be synthesizing when it comes to vitamin D. Yeah. But even then, you'd be the first one to admit that it's an approximation of one metabolite, right? Basically.
It's just not going. It's the whole reason why I created the vitamin D timer, that's what we call it, is to help people gauge an appropriate amount of time in direct UV light without the risk of overexposure. And I have disclaimers and I tell people like, look, if you are using the timer and you feel like your skin's getting too warm, but the timer still says that you have 2 minutes left, then please listen to your own intuition and not override it for my app or anyone else's app. But the reason why I have that timer in there is not so much to help people understand how much vitamin D of the one metabolite that they might be synthesizing. It's more so to gauge a safe amount of time to be in the sun without the risk of overexposure. Because you and I have done an episode on vitamin D. I've had Jim Stevenson Jr. on my channel twice. There is no app available that will tell you exactly how much vitamin D your body is making or storing. There's so many other factors that are going to influence that. How much melanin you have, infections you might have, stress levels, your exposure to
Magnesium
non-native
levels.
EMF. Yeah. Your exposure to blue light, how well you're sleeping, how dialed in your circadian rhythms. Are you getting morning sunlight? Are you blocking blue light after sunset? Like are you doing any grounding? Do you have things that are blocking the VDR receptor potentially? It's a faceted conversation, and you can't just base it on an app.
But you can use the app to develop a progressive exposure to sunlight, which will synthesize vitamin D. You will be making vitamin D, barring a big magnesium deficiency, for example. Your body is synthesizing that vitamin D. But as you alluded to, and I'm not gonna hit the nail on the head over and over again with this one, but it's like it's one metabolite in the blood. That you get tested. And that metabolite is one of dozens. And the metabolite is that are in all cells of the body and have storage forms of various forms. It's just a dumb metabolite in a very blunt way. It's a dumb metabolite to track and to test. It's a prime example, in my opinion, of correlation does not prove causation. They found a correlation between low vitamin D in the winter, for example, and even in the summer, right? And all these different disease states. In the winter, I think they should be testing melatonin. In the summer, I think they should be tracking sunlight exposure on the skin, right? Because it's not just the vitamin D. To me, if your vitamin D pulls low in the blood in the summer, highly likely you're just not getting sunlight on the skin. And in the winter, if it's low, it should be track your melatonin and see what that's saying. It's just this has been blown out of proportion.
And Dr. Seahalt, who he was just on Huberman, and he was on my podcast, what we really talked about in his viewpoint of a conventional doctor is that it's not so much vitamin D, it's the fact that most people are not exposed to infrared and they're missing out on infrared, not necessarily the UVB, which is important.
But does he understand exclusion zone water? This is so interesting where these doctors.
I think he's getting to that.
I hope he is.
I think he is just like, he's very familiar with Glenn Jeffrey. Yeah. With Glenn Jeffrey.
But Glenn's not. It was so interesting because Glenn didn't know about that. And he's starting to. It's just starting to.
Glenn and Roger are really good friends.
It's just so interesting that it's so siloed, and it's like I think it's the infrared that's providing a benefit. Well, I could tell you
why.
Exactly.
Infrared does a couple of things. Number one, it expands the exclusion zone, and number two, it makes subcellular melatonin. So he knew about the subcellular melatonin. We talked about that, but I'm pretty sure I brought up exclusion zone water. I'm pretty sure I brought that cellular hydration piece up in our interview. And I don't think it was a connection he was quite there with yet, but
I know a whole bunch of red light therapy researchers who say, well, we think it's affecting the water, but we don't know why it's affecting the water and why that would be helpful. And I'm like,
hello, it's Dr.
Let's chat.
Yeah, I agree. And I remember when we were interviewing Glenn Jeffrey, I just was watching you because he was talking about it, and I was like, it's the water. It's
and I think these researchers I think they're totally open. Right. These researchers who are going into light and thinking outside the box. And I think they're totally open to understanding this. I think Glenn, he emailed us afterwards and said he would love it at some point if we came over to the UK and just sat with him and chatted, right? Chatted more about this.
Because he was so much fun.
He was so lovely, so much fun. So I think they're open to it. It's just, I want more of these researchers I want more people to know about water.
Raw connection. Water. It's the basis of everything. It's the basis of why light is so impactful, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I just recorded a video for my practitioner, for my YouTube with my practitioner specific series about simplifying health through the lens of water. It explains why all these different modalities and all these things are beneficial. It even explains why inflammation happens. Inflammation happens to generate water, right? Reactive oxygen species become water in the blood and in the cells. Nitric oxide becomes water. We've got all of these ways that we're trying to generate or recycle water. And if we can do that efficiently and keep it structured where it needs to be,
It's so
Voila.
much gatekeeping in the world of science, though, because
That's
people
true.
are so confused. That's what sparked us to really talk about this. Is I made a little 5-minute video on using the vitamin D timer for my app, and the comments underneath that video, I'm like, how to break your leg from overthinking, my Lord. I have ultimate like grace and, compassion for people because they're listening to a lot of the mainstream thinking that is a lot of overthinking and like, you got to do this protocol and it has to be this biochemical reaction and this, that, and the other. And it's like, it's not as complicated. You can make it really complicated, but it's not, health doesn't have to be so darn complicated. And I think as long as we keep it that way and we gatekeep, we're going to keep people out of doing something really simple, like going out and exposing your body to midday sun for a few minutes,
I know. I know. I get it. And it's honestly, it's why I talk a ton in my community on Instagram in this challenge about like what your skin's signals are for light. Because I don't care, like you said, I don't care what an app says, I don't care what that guru or that guru says, your body will tell you.
Right.
And so it's for some people, they actually have a bit of a like a itchiness response to their skin because they're clearing histamine. For other people, with maybe less melanin, it's going to feel like a pinkening effect. For people with more melanin, it's maybe less pinkening, more of maybe an uncomfortable warming, sensation.
And you're like, oh,
beautiful.
There's your
Pull
sign.
yourself
Time
out.
to get out.
Yeah. Put on a cover up, whatever I just feel like it's, again, it's an idea of outsourcing, and we're not in our bodies, which you and I talk about, you're not in your body and understanding what your body is telling you.
Right.
And I think
that's like, I got an app, but I don't want people to live and die by the app.
Exactly.
Because I don't really use the app to gauge my time in the sun. I don't time it.
I don't either.
I can tell when I need to get out. I have this built-in clock because I've been doing this for the last number of years that like I can go lay out and I'm like, ooh, that's it. Time for me to go in. I'm feeling it. I don't use my own app for that. I do use my app to like let me know it's sunrise, daybreak, sunset, nightfall. I like to know, and solar noon. I like
UVA
to know
rise.
I like to know that information, and it changes just a little bit every single day. But the vitamin D timer, I don't really use it anymore because I know like how to do it. So the timer is there not to tell you how much vitamin D you're making, because that's impossible to understand in an app. It's there to help you to train your own body and your own intuition to kind of get like, because I've seen it with lots of clients, the pinkening of the skin or the warming of the skin or the histidine, those usually correlate with the timer saying it's time to go in. That usually correlates. It usually lines right up. If you've put all the information in about your skin type, your height, your weight, all that stuff, it'll correlate pretty right on with those intuitive feelings. And as you get deeper into summer, July, August, right? You've been laying out there for a while, your skin type changes. Your Fitzpatrick, mine bumps up to, I would say like a 2.5. Right now I'm a 1, but I'll catch up.
I'd say 2.5. I'd like to say 3, but no.
I mean, I still have H2 haplotype. Like,
I know.
It is what it is. Yeah. And I know I've got this Krypton here behind me that's got UV, UVA, UVB, red, and infrared, but I really have only used it a handful of times this winter. And that was when I was sick and not feeling good. So I have not kept a really deep tan all year. I don't think we're supposed to, honestly.
There's no chance that I could hear unless I was using, like you said, an artificial source of UV.
Yeah.
So I don't think okay. So, the hypothesis is that melanin is one way that we sequester metals, right? From the true toxic metals to oxidized iron. So the oxidized metals as well, that could be beneficial when they're not in their oxidized state. And so if we can bind it through the skin, and it's relieving the tissues of a potentially toxic metal burden, and then losing skin cells losing those melanated skin cells is another way of draining toxins from the body that people just, again, it's just something that is just being brought to people's awareness.
I agree. And the other thing with melanin that's interesting, I was just talking about this with my private coaching group, is we use it, like you were saying. When I had that week with my daughter in the ICU, before that happened, I was like super tan because it happened at the end of the summer. I'd been laying out. I was super tan. After my daughter like almost died, was in ICU, it was like really traumatic experience. My tan was completely freaking gone, like totally gone. I was able to get it back because it was early enough in the summer that I built it back up. But yeah, that was when my eyes were open to like, oh, melanin's actually protective. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's actually came to my rescue in a time of really high stress. That my body just used it all up, and I didn't get sick, and I didn't, from not sleeping and being in the hospital with EMF and blue light and the stressful situation, my body was like, shoot, we're going to take all this melanin. We're going to use it up. She's not going to get sick. And she will be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Essentially what you're saying, I think, and people, maybe I want to make sure people hear this, is it can pull it in, right? You can increase it inside, right? In order to keep energy in tissues that might be being compromised in an environment or a stress state like you were in.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that's where people are like, they don't quite understand the utilization of it and the purpose of it. So there is a lot to it.
There is. And so that's what another beautiful segue. There's more to sunlight on the skin than making vitamin D. So just going based on how your skin adapts and layers in melanin is an ability then to acquire more energy from sunlight, because you pull in that energy from sunlight, split the water molecules that exist around every molecule in the body, but around melanin in particular, and you make molecular hydrogen and molecular oxygen. So you essentially there is research that indicates that melanin splitting water will provide energy to tissues that don't even have blood flow, adequate blood flow, because the melanin is providing the oxygen. The melanin splitting the water is providing the hydrogen, which is an electron donor to the mitochondria. So, I mean, again, our biology is brilliant. And I think we're just at the tip of the iceberg in terms of understanding it. But there you go. That's another thing. You just observe, how when you get pink the next day, not that I want this to happen, but do you get pink and the next day it still stays pink? And that's too much, right?
That's too much.
It should go from pink to pink one day, a little pinkening, to even by the end of the day, more melanin. Yeah. Right. And then especially the next morning, more melanin. Yeah. That's what it should be.
Yeah. And I feel like what really shook me up, and we did a whole episode on this last year, is when Dr. Sarah was here. She got here in April. And she was here till June. She stayed like 3 months. She was so tan. This little girl, she was walking my dog, and she's like, "Mommy, what is that black woman walking the poodle?" Like, and Sarah was like, "What?" She said, "Why does that black woman have blue eyes?"
Oh, interesting.
Kids say the weirdest
things. Yeah, kids will say interesting things. Yeah.
And Sarah's just, and as a parent, you're like, ooh. Yeah, the parent was like mortified, like, oh my God. Because we live in Atlanta, it's a very multicultural city, but Sarah was really, really dark, really dark. Her vitamin D only got it to like a 25.
In the blood, right?
In the blood. Right. In the blood. That is the thing. It's in the blood.
I know. I'm glad I know that story now, that anecdote, because it's going to help so many people. Because the number of times I see people at the end of summer test their D, 25 OHD, right? The common vitamin D test. And it's like 30. Yeah. Or 28 or 32. And that's supposed to be the low end of normal, where it's like critical that you supplement. Yeah. It's like, no. If you've gotten it through sunlight exposure, if you've gotten adequate sunlight exposure and you've done that process of getting that light on the skin over time and built some melanin, if you could build it, or if you have already melanated skin, you've done the activity of just getting light on your skin consistently, you're making tons of vitamin D. You're making plenty of it. Yeah. It's not necessarily going to show up as the storage form in the blood.
Right. Exactly. It's not this clear cut thing. And my question would be like, if somebody got to the end of the summer and they were not able to build a tan, that's where I would I would kind of say, well, what's going on with that?
Oh, I'd look at copper, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because that copper enzyme is needed to make, so the copper is needed for the tyrosinase enzyme to make melanin, right?
Yeah.
And so that enzyme that produces melanin is copper dependent. Interesting. That's what I would think about with that.
Yeah. And I don't ever really see that, honestly. That's not a thing. I
do see people with copper deficiency, but I don't see it affecting melanation of the skin typically.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
There is such an interesting observation, right? Where people, as you go closer to the equator, the incidences of autoimmune conditions drop drastically.
Multiple sclerosis.
Right. Multiple sclerosis, type 1 diabetes, even asthma, right? And so you see these autoimmune and inflammatory conditions, the incidence drop. And I read some very interesting research that indicate they were thinking, oh, well, we do see a correlation between low vitamin D levels and a higher incidence of these conditions. So they've tried supplementing vitamin D. It doesn't work out. Or they thought that to themselves, so could it be something independent of vitamin D? And what they realize, what we now know is that we've got these photoreceptors on the skin. For example, urocanic acid is one of them that it gets produced when we get UV light on the skin. Urocanic acid gets produced as a mechanism of almost like an endogenous SPF to kind of filter the UV light a little bit. Yeah. But what that urocanic acid can do is it can activate different inflammatory mediators in the skin that then drain through the lymph nodes, and they go all the way to the bone marrow, and they can regulate T cell function. And regulating T cell function is the name of the game when it comes to autoimmune conditions. And so again, there's things that are completely independent of vitamin D that are happening, and we're just starting to hypothesize the tip of the iceberg. But I just thought that makes perfect sense to me, which is why they call sunlight immunosuppressive. But I think people have a negative connotation with that. It's not like it's immunosuppressive and bad. It's immunomodulating. So that over aggressive immune reactions don't come to fruition.
Well, here's the thing, like the whole boost your immune system is kind of a bunk statement. If you see what happens when somebody does have a quote unquote autoimmune disorder, you don't want to boost the immune system all the time. It's already friggin' boosted. Like it's already overacted. You don't need to boost it. It's already boosted. What we need to do is modulate it and get it to have a normal response. So your body's not reacting to every little thing, So I think some of our terminology is just misleading. And then the narrative is like, oh, boost your immune system with these 5 easy supplements. And it's like, I don't want to do that all the time.
I know. Plus, I don't think anything regulates our body's ability to heal, clear damage and heal, which is basically what's happening with immune function. Like having appropriate circadian signaling and getting light on the skin when you need it versus darkness at night.
Right. Exactly. That's basic. That's a basic right there. I had
try boosting clearance of like pathogens or inflammation when the body doesn't know it's nighttime.
Right. Because it won't be able to detox and
it can't run the repair pathways.
Exactly. It can't.
Clear senescent cells. You can't run apoptosis, autophagy. It's just
That's such a huge problem.
I want the one supplement. Maybe we did you and I talk about this? But like maybe last podcast, Urolithin A. It's a one supplement that's very fascinating to me, but it's still bothersome because I understand that it can enhance mitophagy, which is the breaking down and disposal of damaged mitochondria. I want someone to do that in a circadian controlled setting. And then I want to see, right? Because we go through mitophagy at night naturally. When our brain knows it's darkness and it's time to kind of purge and repair. And so how does urolithin A by itself in someone who's not have a circadian synced lifestyle, maybe urolithin A can provide some benefit for mitophagy, but what about people who are already going through regular mitophagy? Does it have is it the same, or does it actually enhance that? Interesting. Be interesting.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Anyways,
I think that's just a basic that people don't understand. And it's frustrating because I even have people in my group. I think it was someone who even went through our fertility course and the first round of it, and she's still struggling. And she's like fighting over, I'm a night owl. I'm a night owl. I'm up till 2 every night. And I'm sleeping every day till 11. And I'm tracking my hormones and they're just all over the place. And I'm like, I got to be on until you align your light and dark signals correctly.
I don't care what you eat.
It doesn't matter what else you do or how much grounding you do or what. I don't care. It's not going to function the way it should. Your hormones are not going to straighten out until you quit staying up every night till 2 a.m. and sleeping until 11 every morning. Like, you're missing out on growth hormone production. You're missing the boat with leptin. You're missing the boat with melatonin. Like you said,
you're missing the boat with the cascade of steroid hormones that gets produced in the morning anyways. Right. I mean,
right. That
it's just, it's unfortunate that it really, I know. And I know there is confusion for people, and I get it. Like, for you folks who are going to be up in the far northern latitudes where the sun's going to rise at 3 a.m. I get that there's nuance.
That's a different situation. That's a different situation.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I mean, and so light is foundational, and it may start in an instance. So let's take that as a case study. In an instance like that, I would say you must block the artificial light using the orange tone at sunset, and then an hour before your desired bedtime, which is ideally no later than 10 p.m., you're putting the red ones on. So about 9 p.m., you're putting the red ones on. You're having a wind down routine that does not involve stimulating things, right? You're listening to peaceful music, you're meditating. No
murder mysteries on Netflix.
No reality TV, no murder mysteries, no scrolling, no social media, no things that can be triggering and make you feel angry or excited or It's the wind. It's like,
it has to be, that's got to be sacred. Honestly.
It does.
I mean, some days at the end of the day, I feel like I've been in a friggin' war with a toddler and then my daughter just being erratic teenager, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, the kids are down. It's 8 o'clock. I'm going to go roll my biomat out on the bed, get that warmed up, do some hydrogen, phone goes away. And that's it. Like, my husband's going to come talk to me about some stupid political crap. And I'm like, please stop. I don't care. I don't want to talk about it. The hours of like 9 to 4, I can talk about these things and I still don't even like it.
But and even then I'm not that interested.
He knows I have a cutoff time for hearing about political stuff. I'm like, you're past the cutoff. Like,
not interested, not processing, not interested.
Go talk to your brother about this. I don't want to talk about it. Because I just
there you go. He's got another outlet, so that's good.
Yeah, not me. We want to talk a little bit about why we both use more red light therapy in the winter really quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Come summer, it is so easy for me to pop outside for 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, take the clothes off and just soak up the natural light, right? And I know you do. I know you do the same. And it's beautiful because we're getting all of those red and near infrared wavelengths from the sun and imparting all those healing benefits from sunlight. But come, November, December in Michigan, there's very little opportunity for me to do that. It's just too cold, and so I'll go outside and get my light signaling through my eyes, but my skin really, that infrared and red that I want to absorb through my skin is just lacking. And so that's why I would highly recommend if you live in an environment like that, you consider using a red light therapy panel in the winter. It can be the biggest game changer.
Yeah. And we both love the Bon Charge Mini. This is super convenient. You can take it with you traveling. You guys don't know when I'm recording the podcast, half the time I have it on my low back or somewhere in my body to mitigate some of this blue light. And for the months of November and December, you can use the code QuantumPod25 for November and December only to get 25% off the panel or anything on the Bon Charge website. Carrie and I are both big fans.
Yeah. And one more thing really quickly with that. It's a great gift too, right? If you want to start getting people involved in this lifestyle and say it's the most convenient way, if there's a mom that who needs to tend to boo-boos and aches and pains for kids or earaches, tummy aches, sore throats, it's a phenomenal gift to give as well because it really can wipe away pain very fast.
I love it. All right, check it out. Link is in the show notes. Yeah, you've got to keep that time really sacred if you want to have optimal hormone function. And honestly, when you get into your 40s, it does become more of a challenge, because you are seeing a natural shift in these hormones and you are more sensitive. I see it on labs of clients of like, they do something, they have a stressful night, they have a big piece of birthday cake at 8 o'clock at night. And the next morning they go get their blood work done. I'm like, well, why did you do that? But okay. And it's jacked up. I'm like, you're 45, you can't play around like this. It's
less wiggle room, especially if you haven't been practicing the circadian stuff
for a long
an
time,
extended period
for
of
a
time.
long time.
Yeah, long time.
Yeah.
I would say I was at least 4 or 5 years into it when I started to realize how much wiggle room now I let myself have, but I still don't want to, because I still feel like if I go, like, let's say there's 3 days in a row where it's like below zero temperature or horrible cold rain, and I don't get out at UVA rise. So that's actually what it's looking like today, tomorrow, or yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And it's like, I can tell by the time Thursday rolls around. So 3 days later, I'm like, I need to get out there. Like, I know that I know that I've done enough of these like brief check-ins during the time to kind of sustain and maintain. But gosh, I need that. I know I need that UVA rise.
Yeah, it's a thing. I mean, and I was feeling terrible. The weather's starting to get a bit warmer here now, but I mean, I was really feeling bad at the end of February. It's just like, because it gets so gray and dreary here. I mean, I don't ever want to tell anyone they have to move. That's just not a thing I will ever tell anyone to do. But dang, if I had to live somewhere like you did, I would just have to move. I'm sorry. And I told my husband yesterday, I was like, Florida.
Everyone, all of you circadian people hate where I live. Corey hated you.
I cannot like even imagine living where because Georgia is too harsh for me. I'm sorry. By the end of February, I'm like, I'm moving to Florida and like Key West, Florida, not the North.
Yeah, but then you talk to the Key West people, and they're like, don't come here in January or in July. It's awful, right?
It's awful. Well, I'd have to keep a house here too.
You're what they call a halfback. Have you heard of that? Right?
No, I've heard of like a snowbird, but
snowbirds are people who came from like Michigan and they went to Florida and they stayed. But halfbacks are people who flew from Michigan to Florida, realized Florida was too hot for a lot of the year, and they flew halfway back to like Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina.
See, Georgia's pretty nasty though in the summer. It gets pretty awful here in the summer.
Right.
So, like, I know Dr. Sarah, she left in June and she was just like, what the hell is this in June?
Right.
And I'm like,
just wait till August.
You haven't been here in August and sometimes September. We can have an 80-degree day in October. I mean, it just can be bad here, but I prefer that over. Honestly.
Well, you just have the name of the game is you take advantage of what your seasons and the temperature has to offer. And if you're in a location where you can't do that because it just doesn't vibe with you, and you know that you could sustain social connections. I mean, there's so much to the moving piece, right?
So much
doesn't get discussed.
Right. Because you don't want, that's why we haven't, because we've talked about moving to Florida several times for several reasons, but we have elderly parents, we have support here for my daughter for letterboarding, and
there's your sisters, my sisters, and then cousins, and
James is enjoying being with the cousins, like he has a blast with his cousins, and I do want our kids to all kind of grow up knowing each other. So it's not just, that's why I can't stand it when people are like, oh, just move. Like, you want people to just uproot. There's a mitochondrial benefit to being around family and people that you love also.
Having a supportive community and feeling loved. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, I have had a couple of people who have moved. One was, it was after working with this woman for about a year, but maybe a little longer. And what I kept on hearing her say was she originally from India, moving to the UK. And what I kept on hearing her say was, this just doesn't feel like a healthy place. I just don't feel good when I'm back in India, or when I'm visiting my sister in Portugal and stuff. I just feel so much better. It's like, well, those are indications, right?
Her haplotype is not built for the UK.
Right. Right. Yeah. Exactly. And so she and her family ended up being in agreement, like that wasn't an ideal location. So that felt empowering. Whereas I know of an individual, not upon my recommendation, but I know of an individual who, with electro hypersensitivity and some severe health challenges, moved closer to the equator. hasn't resolved everything, right?
Yeah.
And so there, it's not a panacea necessarily. So I just had this conversation with someone in my community about like, well, what's the healthiest place to be? And I said, the healthiest place for you to be is where you want to spend time outside. You've got community. There's things you like to do. It brings you joy. You feel loved. Like, sure, the circadian aspect is huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's a lot else with it that comes into play when it comes to choosing the place that feels most supportive for you.
Definitely. Yeah. It's multifactorial, like anything. So I hate broad sweeping generalizations, but for me, I don't think I could ever live, because the post about sunlight on Instagram, who's going to come for you first? Sweden, Finland, and UK. Every freaking time.
They don't come to me because I live in Michigan.
Every time.
You get street cred when you live in the cold darkness too, right? You get street cred.
I'm sorry I'm not live there. I'm sorry for you. I'm sorry you have to deal with that. That sucks.
Cold, dark, and gray, been there, and I feel great still.
Go talk to Carrie.
Just still go outside. What people don't realize, in the colder, darker months of the year, the signaling is through the eyes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You still have to, you still go outside, but it's through the eyes. Like, I know I see some influencers with these guys with their, usually it's guys, right, with their shirts off in the cold. And if that's what you want to do, that's great. I'm not going to stop you.
But you don't have to do that.
You don't. You got to get it through the eyes, and then you got to respect the darkness.
Yep.
I mean, and so then for me, might feel, I think I've heard you say this so too, but like, I don't want to go outside at 7:00 at night to a dinner or to a show or to a movie. I don't go to movies anyways. Like,
no, I don't want to go to a movie. Don't ask me. I'm not going.
I know. I know. Like the kids are like, oh, there's a new cartoon that's out. Ask your father.
I'm not doing it. We're not going.
I do enough fun kid stuff. Like that's a good kid dad activity.
Yeah.
So anyways, no, but so I'm perfectly happy adjusting my lifestyle like that. Whereas if you like meeting up with friends after work and sitting around until 8, 9 o'clock, maybe you need to move someplace where it's lighter, longer, right? Maybe that would benefit you.
The equator is 12.
Yep,
right?
Yep, 12 hours. 6 a.m. sunrise, 6 p.m. sunset.
6 p.m. sunset, year round, all year round. Oh. The further north you go, the more extreme the light changes are. That's what people, this was another post where I had somebody from the UK just coming after me. Oh my God. And then they were in my DMs. I'm like, please get a life. Because I posted that you still, wherever you are on the planet, get the same amount of sunlight. And they're like, not in the UK. I'm like, yes, in the UK. Yes. I'm not talking about cloud cover. You might have more clouds, right? But
light exposure.
And someone, you've never been to the Colorado Canyon.
Can't visit every place on the country, or in the world.
I know I'm not. I've actually never been there. So no, I haven't.
True statement.
You've never been here. No, haven't been, but it's still true. I'm not talking about cloud cover. I'm talking about, we get the same amount of light exposure in Georgia versus Michigan. But for you, the sun might come up at like 5 a.m. in the summertime
and set at 10 o'clock at night. Right.
And for here, the earliest the sun comes up is like 6:30 in the morning. And then it'll set at a reasonable time, like 8:30 at night is the latest that it's going to set here.
Right.
And that's reasonable for me.
So I have more daylight exposure opportunities during the longer days of the year. Yes. Right. And
your winter days are way shorter than mine.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot shorter. And so if you can tolerate those fluctuations and still work with your environment, or understand how to navigate, which you and I talk about this, but how to navigate, let's say, being in Sweden in the middle of December versus the middle of June, right? There are some nuances to how you flip that. And back in the day, I think it was you and I maybe we were talking, but I was like, and it was before we even had, I don't have a huge following now. It was before we had like bigger and bigger followings. And I remember being like, didn't know people from Greenland or the Arctic Circle follow this stuff. I'm like, my apologies. You're right. You're right. You're right. You won't have UVA at some point of the year. You're absolutely right. You'll have complete darkness.
Yeah.
So my apologies, right? There is more nuance to be
You'll
had.
have like 2 or 3 days where the sun doesn't even come up.
Right.
But that's why I don't live there, because I think that's completely insane. You know, I couldn't.
I know. I know people who are deep in that Arctic Circle who that's just the lifestyle that they've learned how to. Yeah. And they love it.
Is there, their family is there. So it's like the same thing we were talking about with like picking up and moving. It would be hard for them, but I just, knowing different, I know I could never go north. I would never want to live in an environment like that ever, because knowing what I know now. And being where
have you ever experienced a time with a lot of snow?
No.
You've never been in a lot of snow. Oh, interesting.
No, the longest that it will snow here is like a couple of days.
Yeah, but like how much, what's the greatest accumulation you've ever gotten?
We had a blizzard in 93. I remember this.
30 years ago, we had 4 inches.
No, it was like a big blizzard.
Okay.
I mean, it shut everything down. We lost power. I remember it because we were all huddled in the living room. We had to like burn fire, stay warm for days. Like it was like a major disaster. It was an actual blizzard that we had here that shut everything down for a solid week.
I'll have to Google the Atlanta.
It was either 92 or 93. It was a thing.
Sounds like a big deal. Well, also, no, I mean, to be fair, in your location, you don't have the type of snow removal.
You don't have the equipment.
Exactly.
There's no reason, because people made fun of us. We had the 2 snowstorms in January. People were like, oh, your whole city shuts down for a week. Well, why would they invest? This city's already broke as hell anyway. Don't get me started on all the corruption in this city and this county is ridiculous, but they're not going to spend money on equipment to clear the roads. We have bigger fish to fry. We have dirty water, you know?
Right.
We're not going to invest in equipment we might use. The last time it had snowed here was like 2018.
Yeah, it makes no sense, because then the maintenance and the upkeep and having someone who can operate those huge vehicles and things like that. It makes no sense.
Doesn't exist. Yeah. So no, I've never been in that.
Have you ever been ice skating?
Yeah, we used to have ice skating rinks here.
Oh, like indoor rinks?
Indoor rinks, but never outdoors. No.
Oh,
I had a boyfriend that was from Minnesota, and we went up there in September, and I saw all these like ridiculous lakes everywhere. It was like so many lakes everywhere, and he were
10,000 lakes.
I saw traffic lights out on the middle of the lake. I'm like, what is that for? He's like, oh yeah, during the winter they drive on the lakes. I'm like, what the hell? Like, to the point where they have traffic lights over some of these lakes because people drive on them. I'm like, it's not safe.
Well, and they're ice fishing is a huge thing.
Fishing,
yeah. And it's just a different lifestyle to embrace, you know. And if you're not willing to, then maybe it's not for you, right?
It's not for me.
It's not for you.
I know
it's not for you. You and I were going to meet up in that like 200 acres that we found in Tennessee, right? The Tennessee mountains or something. That seemed like the perfect climate.
That sounds fantastic. Tennessee, that's about as far north as I'm willing to go, honestly, because they still get UVB around too, I think.
We'd have to ask Oksana. I wouldn't know. So,
yeah.
But no, going back to spring now is, hey, for all of you northern people like me, and even people in Sarah's territory, the sun's getting stronger.
Yeah.
And it's worth it to take advantage of layering it on.
Yes.
I also recall maybe last year or the year before, I recall a lot of people from the UK reaching out to me to be like, we've literally had like only 4 days of sun the entire summer. It's been cloudy, still go outside. Because while it's not direct contact sunlight, there is still that light that will reach your skin. It's just not the same intensity. So it is worthwhile to go outside, even on cloudy days.
You can still get through clouds, right?
That's
it absolutely you can still get a sunburn on a cloudy day. If you're
that was actually back in the day when I didn't know this stuff. Like, I think I was just out of college, and it was like a cloudy day at the beach, and I thought that I could go be wandering around with my sunglasses on and bride. right?
I've done it too. Cause we used to go to the pool all summer. We would ride our bikes up to the community pool, swim all day long. And if there's no clouds in the sky, I mean, if there were clouds in the sky, I'm like, I'm not wearing sunscreen, forget it, And I would get really, really burned on those days. Yeah.
So do be aware of your skin signals and maybe just try it out. Like go even lay out, even if it's not direct sunlight touching your skin. Same. And just do, if you're not sure how your skin's going to respond, start small, 5-10 minutes, and then come inside, observe your skin over the course of the next 12 hours and just kind of see what happens, see what develops.
Yeah. And the app will tell you also, like it'll account, like I said, it's going to tap into the weather app. We're tied into that directly. So it will tell you, it understands how much cloud cover that there is. And you can also manually adjust that as well, but it's going to tap into that automatically. So
which calculates a UV index basically to indicate, exactly the intensity of the UV light that can come to your skin. So
exactly.
No, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
No, listen, I used to use the DMinder app when I was first starting off with this, like you said, because it's a tool. It's a tool to say, okay, so I used to fear the sunlight or get burned all the time. Now let me just slowly see what it feels like to build up. And it was super helpful to have an app and then assess my skin. And like you said, eventually you reach this point where you're like, made plenty, pull myself into the shade.
The DMinder app really helped to train me, of understanding how long I could be out there. And I've definitely made mistakes when I first started this stuff. And maybe this is another podcast converation.
What we did wrong. That's a great conversation.
I think we should do that next week.
Write it down.
All the stuff I'm writing it down. All the stuff I did wrong when I first started this, because I was having this conversation with my private coaching group this week of like, I would not have exposed my face so much. I got a little hyperpigmentation, which is gone thanks to hydrogen now, but
in my Q&As for the Institute of Applied Quantum Biology, so for the practitioner certification, I got this question in this recent cohort a lot about photoaging. And because again, like we've talked about this, there's two camps in this quantum biology space.
Oh yeah.
No, it can't possibly photoage you.
Mostly the dudes that say it.
I know. It's like, no, it can't possibly photoage you because there's infrared and red. And there's other people who are like, been there, done that. And it did photoage. Right. And
I got, hyperpigmentation on the side of my face from just like blasting myself all the time. Now I'm like, I'm gonna wear a hat, I'm going to be more careful,
more mindful. My face still gets tan. My skin, but what I tell people,
skin still gets tan. Definitely.
What I tell people, in my community, or even in that Q&A, things is like when I lay out now, I have when I'm sunning my body, I have a hat on or something like that because I get enough incidental sun exposure on my walks or during playground supervision or whatever to build up melanation to the extent that I like in the skin on my face.
Well, the hands and the face are just
and the chest
and the chest. Like, this
Tops
area here, I will cover this up too because it ages a lot faster. Why? Because these areas are going to get a lot more sun exposure just all year round.
Oh, we're going to get. I bet you we're going to get ripped in the comments.
Come at me, bro. I'm sorry, but I think women would be wanting to know this information rather than just tell people to go out and just be careless. I don't know. It drives me crazy this time of year. Also, I did a post about this. Is like, you got all these influencers that come out and they're like, the sun doesn't cause cancer. The sun, blah, 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 blah. The sun. And they just like
very absolute
statements with no nuance. And then all the dermatologists are going to come for you. Then like everyone's going to just be like, what are they?
It's not conducive to a conversation.
No, it's not a conversational. It's there to get clicks, likes, and views, not to educate anyone. And that's where I think you and I come from is like, we want to have a reasonable conversation with people about this stuff.
And I read your posts. People read my posts. I am not looking for clickbait, right?
Oh, no, you're not. You're not. I could grow a lot faster if I was more.
I know you could. If you talked about protein more, like you could grow.
If I just made my whole page about protein and like.
And also if you and I opened our comments up to the general public, we restrict our comments
Yeah, I restrict
good
my
reasons.
comments to my followers only.
My followers only, which means we're going to get less interactions on our posts. But I'm totally fine with that because the interactions, I don't want the interactions that
I
are
don't
just.
want it. I opened my comments for 1 week last summer.
Yeah, I remember that. And you were traumatized.
I was it was within like 10 minutes.
Days. I know. No,
it was 10 minutes of opening my comments. Ping, ping, ping. I'm like, whoa, just unsubscribe.
I know.
Like they can go on all the other posts on Instagram that have their comments open. I don't need to do that.
I don't need that either. It's not worth it.
I'm not gonna be able to show up if I'm constantly getting, and I actually like laughed so hard I was crying. I don't know if I sent it. I know I sent it to Dr. Sarah because I was just like, OMG. I did a post on the My Circadian app page talking about daylight savings time, right? Or daylight saving time, because there's no S on the end of saving. And I said that the Monday following the time change, right, there's a 24% increase in cardiac events.
I saw that post.
And then the Monday following the change back to our regular time in the fall, there's like an 11% decrease in cardiac events. And then I said, tell me again how light doesn't impact health. Well, I got the most hateful message from someone cursing me out. I mean, it was like 10 ways to freaking Sunday of like, what? And it was like, you are like, how dare you? And then you're a nut job that doesn't open your comments. I like daylight saving time. That's what it said. It said, I like daylight saving time, and then proceeded to curse me out for not having the comments open. I was like, I had to screenshot it. I was like,
these ones, I know.
This is
unhinged. Yeah, this is a broader topic.
There's a deeper problem that you're dealing with, I think, beyond my post.
Beyond daylight saving time.
But
I know. Or like when people subscribe to your email list and then you send them emails and then they curse you out because you send them emails and they say, you got to it's like you literally subscribe. I got a double opt-in. You literally subscribe to my emails and now you're cursing me out for sending you emails.
Yeah, I've had that before too. Yeah, it's fun. Not.
Oh yeah. So anyway,
the original topic, I feel like you and I both, at the end of the day, want to make this information accessible for people, not stand on a platform of clickbait and, just move
or sun's never damaging. It can never be harmful.
Cause a problem.
What's fascinating that they reference listen, again, I appreciate any influencer who's trying to bring attention to light, right? Yes. But I may have contention with the delivery because when they'll say something like, the sun never causes photoaging, and then they'll cite a bunch of, they'll say it's 50% of it is in the infrared spectrum, and then they cite photobiomodulation articles, red light therapy research articles.
There's no UV.
Right. And they're saying, look at red light therapy enhances collagen production, anti-inflammatory for the skin. Well, yeah, but that's not apples to apples. You're not comparing sunlight to you can't compare sunlight to a red light therapy device.
No.
They're different modalities.
Right.
Yeah. There was one where you preconditioned the skin with red light therapy. Right. And then they shined narrowband UVB light, right? Like a spurty lamp, if you will, on skin. To see how long it takes to get an erythema response or that initial pinkening, and even to the point of excessive inflammation. And they showed that if you precondition it with certain wavelengths of red and infrared, it takes a lot longer for an erythema response to appear. And so that's the justification of, see, look, if you get morning light first before sunlight, you can get all of it that you want and you could just go outside and you'll never burn. It's like, no, I made that mistake back in the day, thinking I could go travel somewhere, right? And like, it's like, I'm going from Michigan to Florida and no problem. I'm going to get my morning light on my skin and then I can stay in the big, strong UV light. No, it doesn't work that way.
No, and if you're on the water where the sun's reflecting off the water, that's going to intensify.
Right.
And you are going to be more likely to burn sunglasses or not.
Right.
Sorry to let you know.
there's nuance to
there's
this.
so much careless we talk about it more next week, but there's just so much careless information out there when it comes to this topic that it really gets under my skin. Cause I think, and I'm talking to my husband about this, the information on circadian biology is becoming more mainstream, and it's about to hit a critical mass because of Huberman and people out there really talking about this stuff. As that happens, I think we're going to see more and more of this. And then the other people, the dermatologists and such, are going to push back on it harder. And so I think we need to have people that are having intelligent conversations with nuance about these topics, more and more of that, less and less of sun doesn't cause cancer.
Right.
Well, yeah, a lot of that research is done on narrowband UV. Yes. But I'm not going to be a dumbass and like lay out in the sun for 6 hours. I'm not going to go from Canada to Costa Rica and tell you, because I get that question a lot.
Tell you could see the sunrise one day and adapt your skin. Right. It's just,
you can't, that way. It's going to be really hard for you to prep your skin to go to that environment. So I'm still going to tell you, go to Costa Rica, enjoy yourself, but wear protective clothing
and build up slowly. You could still get that exposure, but just be aware that that ultraviolet light is intense compared to what you've had. So you got to go slow. Yeah. There's just nuance. With Huberman, I do appreciate that this is becoming more mainstream, but you are going to get more absolute statements based on what he perceives from who he's talked to. And he talks to mostly researchers, not clinicians.
Correct.
It's a big difference when you actually work with people and not just read the research or do research. Yeah.
Right. That's the thing. And that's, people don't know how to differentiate between research and clinician, and they don't, because you get a lot of letters behind your name, you get a lot of followers, you have a lot of people respect what you say.
You're I mean, he's a smart dude, right? I don't want to take anything away from him, but I do think that clinicians who have worked with multiple people in this are it's important, because if you've worked with enough people, you'll realize there's no absolute statements.
Right.
My absolute statement back in the day was everyone has UVA. Oh no. Okay.
Actually,
no.
I learned that when I had my app. I'm like, oh, they don't have UVA for a little bit in Sweden, and they don't, it just doesn't come out. It's just red and infrared.
If the sun doesn't get above 10 degrees above the horizon, it's not going to be there. So my bad. You're right. It's like, that was probably the last absolute statement I made.
Me too. I'm like, okay, well, learning. I am learning, always learning.
Right.
Yeah.
So, anyways, about that. I'm excited to talk about our mistakes.
All the things I did wrong. Stay tuned. All right. I hope this was an interesting conversation. I didn't offend too many people. Probably did, but hey, thanks for watching.
Don't leave it in the comments.
Yeah, just unsubscribe. Don't let us know.